Do you think I need to wear like something a bit more smart or something a bit different for this kind of video? Can I keep the trackies on as well, yeah?
Yeah, that's cool, just the top.
Top button done up, or can I leave that nice and...
Keep it slightly open, yeah.
Did he just kill it, or has it been dead the whole time?
I think it's dead, but it's disgusting.
Hey guys! Your lift's here! Welcome to George Benson's Sexy!
Is this you going to your prayer awards?
Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Enough of me being an absolute idiot pretending I'm making any real effort whatsoever here. I've just got a white shirt on instead of a football shirt. It does make a change, but welcome to the first ever episode of the Premier League Awards. It's obviously unofficial. I don't work with or for the Barclays Premier League, so these are basically the George Benson Football Channel Awards for different players and different teams during each month of the season. This is August's. The first thing we're going to do in all of these awards is take a look at the Premier League table before going into my team of the month and the player of the month from each team. As well as that, we're also going to have the top 3 managers, and because it's August, the top 3 signings and how they've kicked off. So let's start at the right top of the table, and we're talking about first and second, Liverpool and Manchester City. Those two, they're the 2 best teams in the league. I think no one can really put any doubts or questions on that, and I think these two are going to interchange as the season goes on and compete for the title. We've then got good starts to the season for Leicester and Crystal Palace in 3rd and 4th respectively. Arsenal, questionable start to the season but also pretty good in 5th. Everton, I think they're starting to get a bit happier now. They're in 6th, same for West Ham in 7th. And then Aston Villa, Norwich and Watford make up the bottom 3. So I think if we're looking at the teams near the bottom, obviously a lot has been said positively about Norwich, although if we're being realistic, they've not picked up enough points to be outside of the bottom 3, so they're going to be worrying still, despite some good performances. Aston Villa as well, at times they've looked pretty good, but they're also not getting enough points. 3 points sees them in the bottom 3, and then there's Wolves, who have drawn 3, they've had some tricky matches, granted, but they were beaten against Everton 3-2, they're down in 17th, so maybe we're starting to see there these opening round Europa League fixtures coming back to bite Wolves. It's not the first time it will be done. So section number 2, we're going to go through each Premier League team and I'm going to give who I think has been the best player so far in their season. So without any further ado, we start alphabetically, we work our way from Arsenal all the way down to Wolves. Now, Arsenal's player of the season so far, not their top scorer, in my opinion. It's a player who has come into the team, and I think he's already starting to offer so much more from a creative standpoint that Arsenal are going to be very grateful for come the end of this season. It's the man on loan from Real Madrid. I've given it to Dani Ceballos. I think Arsenal fans are very excited. They see him as a creative player. He's got a lot of skills in his bag, and he can also win the ball back in midfield as well, which if you partner that alongside the form of Torreira last season, the Arsenal midfield is going to be so much stronger. Guendouzi also looks very good for them as well, but despite Aubameyang's goals, I've given Dani Ceballos because he's had a very good opening month in an Arsenal shirt. So Aston Villa, they're down in 18th place in the table. However, in John McGinn, I think they've got an absolutely brilliant footballer. He's very creative, he's good defensively as well. He can win the ball back as well as creating opportunities going forward. Tyrone Mings, honourable mention to him as well. I think he's been great from Bournemouth so far for Villa, but I've given it to John McGinn. Moving into Bournemouth, the man on loan from Liverpool, Harry Wilson. He scored that incredible goal from that free kick against Manchester City to get Bournemouth back in the game. Sadly for them, they were playing against one of, if not the best teams in the Premier League in Manchester City. He's also got another goal to his name, 2 goals, no assists. He's on loan from Liverpool and he's taking Bournemouth by storm. Good start for Harry Wilson. So player number 4, club number 4, we're going with Brighton. It's been a weird start to the season for Brighton. They were absolutely brilliant on the opening weekend of the season, winning at Watford, getting themselves a clean sheet, and I've given the player of the month to Lewis Dunk. As the month has gone on, Brighton's performances have been getting slightly worse week in, week out, and now they're only on 4 points, and what was a great start to the season has dwindled slightly by the end of August. So I've given it to Lewis Dunk. He was booked against Manchester City, but I think he edged it over anyone else for me. Burnley. There's a couple of clubs where it's an absolute no-brainer as to who has been their best player of the month, and for Burnley, it's the Austrian, it's Ashley Barnes, the man who scored 4 goals in the first 4 games of the season. Burnley, they're always a team where you never quite know what you're going to get. They're either going to have a very strong season, be very difficult to beat, or they're going to struggle. And I think this year they've shown signs of being back to that Burnley side that are very difficult to beat. And in Ashley Barnes, they've got a natural goal scorer who can score goals from outside the box, inside the box, and he can be a real menace for the opposition's defence. So moving on to my Chelsea. The next video that I'm going to post on my channel, I'm going to go through everyone who's played any minutes of football in the Premier League this season for Chelsea and do my ratings out of 10 for every Chelsea player in the month of August. You guys have asked for it, so I'm going to deliver it. But Chelsea's player of the month, to keep it consistent in this video today, I've given it to Tammy Abraham. It could have been, for me, one of 4 players, and you'll find out tomorrow tomorrow who the other three were. I've given it to Tammy because he's got 4 goals in 250 odd minutes of football, and considering he's not started every single match for Chelsea, I think a 4-goal return for the month of August is a brilliant sign that we're on to a winner with young Tammy up top. Moving on to Crystal Palace, we stick with a similar Chelsea theme. It's ex-Chelsea boy Patrick Van Aanholt. I think he's one of the more underrated left-backs in the Premier League, to be honest. There's an abundance of brilliant English right-backs, but in terms of the left-backs, obviously Van Aanholt is Dutch. We're in Amsterdam again today. I think he offers a lot to this Crystal Palace team, not just defensively as a defender, but going forward, he's a right menace as well. So Crystal Palace Player of the Month, in my opinion, is Patrick Van Aanholt. Moving into Everton, for me, it was either going to be the man who's won it or Richarlison. So you've already gathered, it's not Richarlison, it's Lucas Digne. The man who used to play for Barcelona is showing this season some real signs of some top-class football at Everton, and maybe he made it into my team of the month. You're going to have to wait and see that one once you've been through the rest of the teams. So again, another team that have had a very good start to the season. 4 games in, they're unbeaten under Brendan Rodgers, and they look very good in the games that they didn't win as well. It's Leicester City, and I've given their Player of the Month. It could have gone to Jamie Vardy because he has started this season fantastically and was definitely the best player on the pitch in their last game. I've given it to James Maddison. I think this season from Maddison, we're really going to see him growing as a player. He's still very young. I think that there's undoubted amounts of talent that James Maddison has, and the way that he unopened the game for Leicester City. Chelsea were dominant in the first half, and the more Maddison got on the ball in that second half for Leicester, the more he brought to their team, and he draws other players around him into the game to get them involved. So I've given Maddison Player of the Month. Plenty more where that came from for Leicester. So I'm just sat editing the video now, completely realised that I missed out Liverpool's Player of the Month, and I think he's been one of the best players in the Premier League this month. It's Sadio Mane. It's not his best ever goals tally for a month, but I just think the way that he's come back from the African Cup of Nations and has been so good for Liverpool ever since he has. There's been that little rift between him and Mo Salah. I think it's a good thing. In a team that's won every match they've played and even a European trophy in August, the fact that there's that hunger in the team, I think Sadio Mane is going to be Liverpool's key player for the rest of the season, and he has been so in August as well. So Manchester City, again, they've got 10 points from their first 4 games. They didn't get the victory against Spurs, even though they probably on the balance of play deserved to. It's been a decent start to the season for Man City. In terms of their standards, they'd have wanted 12 points from 12. They've got 10, and I could have given this to one of probably 3 or 4 players, but I've given Kevin De Bruyne the man of the month for Manchester City. 5 assists in August is absolutely ridiculous. The man is a machine. He got a goal at the weekend as well, and I expect him to get double figures for both goals and assists this season for Manchester City. He's that creative engine, and he's had a great start to the campaign. The sun's just come out again. Lovely. Manchester United, the new boy, Daniel James. I think it's a no-brainer, really. I think both Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka have come in, and they've had good performances. There's definitely signs that that Manchester United defence is going to improve, and the one weak link of the Man United team, as well as probably the attack, is the midfield. They look a little bit, I don't know if it's a lack of numbers or a lack of quality in the Manchester United midfield, but Daniel James has come in. He's got this electric pace to burst past players, and he's also got 3 goals. Maybe he's got to stop celebrating as if he's won the game, like he did against Crystal Palace with that ironic equaliser that turned out not to really be an equaliser at all. He's got a great career ahead of him at United, and he's a dangerous player no matter who he's playing against. So Newcastle United, I'm basing their Player of the Month off of one performance and one performance only, and that was Paul Dummett's display away at Spurs. Newcastle surprised everybody apart from Lulu in my predictions last week. They won 1-0 at Tottenham, and Dummett was absolutely instrumental in everything that Newcastle did defensively in that game at the new White Hart Lane. Newcastle were phenomenal that day. The fact that they've won that game is obviously the reason they're not in the relegation zone now. Nobody expected them to win at Spurs, and it's performances like that and the heart that Paul Dummett showed. Obviously he's a local lad. I think Newcastle are going to be relying on the likes of him and Longstaff this season, local boys who know what it means to put on the Newcastle shirt. It's going to be performances like Dummett's against Spurs that could keep Newcastle up. Moving on to Norwich, again, it's a no-brainer. At times they've been decent. They're in 19th position, but certainly not in 19th position in terms of player performance is Teemu Pukki. 1 assist, 5 goals in the opening 4 games of the season. He's an absolute nightmare for defenders, and he knows how to finish, whether it's a difficult body movement or whether he just puts it in the back of the net. Pukki's doing it consistently, and he's Norwich's Player of the Month, hands down. Moving on from Norwich, we've got Sheffield United. They were very good against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, deservedly so, getting a 2-2 draw. I've rinsed it. I've spoken about it so much here on the channel over the last few days. We're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the performances of John Lundstrom. I thought that he was very, very good against Chelsea. I think that he's obviously scored a goal, he can play in midfield, he can play in defence, and I think what Chris Wilder's trying to do with these overlapping centre-backs and tactics we've not really seen in the Premier League, John Lundstrom has been absolutely instrumental in that, and he's had a great start to the season. Moving on to Southampton, and I watched the game between Southampton and Manchester United at the weekend, and Yannick Vestergaard was an absolute monster at the back for Southampton. Not only was he very good defensively, but he also seems to have these leadership qualities in a Saints side where they've got a very, very good manager, and he also got forward and scored the goal as well. So I've given their player of the month to the Danish Yannick Vestergaard. Moving on to Spurs. Now, Pochettino will not be very happy with his team's start to the season. I think he'll be happy with the result they got away at Manchester City. They got a win on the opening day after going behind against Aston Villa. But since then, the result against Newcastle and the fact they gave away a 2-goal lead against Arsenal is going to be worrying for Maurizio Pochettino. But one man who doesn't normally do it in August, who has done it this month, is Harry Kane. He's delivered 3 goals for Spurs. There's been people asking questions saying, oh, well, when we don't have Harry Kane in the side, Son picks up and all of a sudden he's the best player in this team. With Harry Kane in the side, you're guaranteed goals, and he's a world-class striker. So for me, Harry Kane is Spurs' player of the month. It is so flipping bright. I'm struggling to keep my eyes open here. Moving on to the W's, we've got Watford, and despite making the worst start of all of the Premier League teams so far this season, I've given it to the man who's got himself a goal and an assist, and he's looking as though he's fulfilling that potential that people have been talking about. It's Will Hughes. I think he's been very good for Watford so far this season in a team where they'll be very disappointed with the start that they've made. They wouldn't have expected to be bottom of the table in August, and Javi Garcia has got a lot to do as the Watford manager. Moving into West Ham United, I'm giving it to the new boy, Sebastian Haller. He missed the first game, and since then he's made 3 appearances. Sebastian Haller's got 3 goals. He really does look like the real deal. They signed him from Frankfurt, and I think he's going to bag a lot of goals in this West Ham team, who have a lot of creative players in order to create the chances for him to score. They've made a good start to the season, West Ham, after getting battered on week number 1, and Sebastian Haller's goals are a major reason for that. And the final team that we're going to go with is another one of the teams who are yet to win a match this season. Just them and Watford have not won a game so far. We're talking about Wolves, and I'm talking about Raul Jimenez today. He's got 2 goals in his first 4 games this season. They signed him permanently. I think he's going to be a great player for Wolves, and I think that despite a slow start to the season, they're certainly going to pick it up and start working their way up the table. So then, that is all 20 of the best players, 1 from each club. We're now going to go ahead and pick my team of the month. So we're going to start in goal today. I'm starting with Kasper Schmeichel. I think Leicester have been absolutely brilliant, and I don't even think we've seen anywhere near the best from this Leicester team under Brendan Rodgers. Kasper Schmeichel, he's a great shot stopper. He's also very agile, and I think Leicester have done very well over recent years to keep him at their club. I think there's been interest from other big clubs in the Premier League, but Schmeichel gets there in goal. And then I've started the defenders with Lucas Digne from Everton. I think it would be very easy for us to just stick a load of Man City and Liverpool players in this team, but I think what Digne brings to Everton, not just from a defensive standpoint, but also as an attacking outlet, is going to be huge for Everton this season, and I think he's had a great month. Moving into the centre-back position, it's the new UEFA Player of the Year. It's Virgil van Dijk. He's been absolutely brilliant again from Liverpool. There's no doubt in my mind that Virgil van Dijk is not only the best defender in the world, but right now he deserves that title as being the best player in the world. I think he was absolutely brilliant for Liverpool all the way through August. Obviously, there's been a few defensive frailties that we may not have seen as much last season, but Van Dijk is still absolutely instrumental in that side, not just for his defensive prowess, but just the way he controls that Liverpool team. It's absolutely brilliant. And I've decided to go with 3 defenders so that we can bulk out the midfield a little bit more, and I've given Trent Alexander-Arnold, another Liverpool man. They're the only team to have won every single match, and I think every single time I see Trent play, not only am I very glad that he's English, because I think he's going to be a great talent for Gareth Southgate moving forward, as well as Liverpool, but he's just so good. The way his mind works, the intelligence of Trent Alexander-Arnold, is something that you don't see from a player of his age. He is quite experienced now. He played the full season pretty much for Liverpool last year, and he just seems to look better and better every single week as a professional footballer. Trent is in that defence. Let's move into the midfield, and the first player that I've gone with is Raheem Sterling. He's got 5 goals for Manchester City. I think anyone who plays in this Man City team, with all of the quality of world-class players they've got within that squad, anyone's going to score goals if given the opportunities. But Raheem Sterling, not only is he just a brilliant footballer who knows where the goal is, he does stuff for his team, but the way that the man carries himself off the field is a credit not only to himself but to his teammates and to English football as well. Raheem Sterling is a role model for many people, and he's made a brilliant start to the season. The next player we're going to go with is Manchester United's Daniel James. There have been a lot of good midfield performances this season. There was one Chelsea player that I wanted to put into it. I think you probably will guess which midfielder I think deserves it, but I've given it to Daniel James. I think the way that a young player comes in, There's actually two pigeons doing obscene things behind the camera. Sorry, I'm just slightly distracted. Please fly away, that's disgusting. So Daniel James, he's come in, he's made a great impact. I think the speed he brings to that Manchester United team is a godsend for them because, well, quite frankly, that midfield just looks flat. Daniel James injects a bit of excitement to that Man United team, and I've given him a slot in my August team of the month, alongside Kevin De Bruyne. We mentioned him as City's best player. There's no way I couldn't put him into this team. 5 assists and 1 goal. The man is an engine, he's a train. He just runs that Manchester City midfield. They're doing it again. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this. What is this? I'm gonna show you now. They stopped, have they? The next player we're going with in the midfield is Leicester City's James Maddison. I mentioned him earlier as being Leicester's best player, and I think just the way that he's able to control games for Leicester City in the middle is going to be key for them this season, and I think the signing of Yuri Tielemans is also great, and it gives James Maddison that licence to just try a few more things, to be a bit more risky within that Leicester team. And I think Chalderi's had a good start to the season as well, playing in front of that defence. But James Maddison, he's the key to all of Leicester's great attacks, and he definitely deserves his spot in the August George Benson football team of the month. Moving into the strikers, there are plenty of players who could have made it, but I've given the first slot to Sergio Aguero. He's got 6 goals, and how this guy doesn't quite make it into everyone's view of top 3, 4, 5 Premier League strikers of all time, I think it's absolutely crazy. Sergio Aguero is one of the best footballers that have ever played in the Premier League, let alone strikers, and every single time he's on the field, he's always wanting more, he's always in the right positions, he can finish with his right, finish with his left, and finish with his head, and he's going to bag 30 goals again for City this year, and he might not even play every flipping game. The next striker I've gone for, it would have been criminal of me to not include Teemu Pukki in the August team of the month. 5 goals and an assist for Norwich. They would be in a very sticky situation if it wasn't for that man finishing it up front. They've got some other good players like Buendia, Todd Cantwell as well, but he's been their standout player, and with 5 goals, there's no way I couldn't put him in the team. And the final player, there could have been a number of players that could have made it. I was thinking of giving it to Tammy Abraham, could have been Ashley Barnes. I've given it to Sadio Mane. I think Liverpool have won every single match. Mane came back from the African Cup of Nations. There wasn't any complaining, there wasn't any tiredness. He was eager to get on the field, and every time he plays, obviously everyone goes on about Mohamed Salah. Sadio Mane, I think he scored more goals than anybody in 2019 in the Premier League. And he's just so good. He brings so much to that Liverpool side. And I think that he is just as important, if not more, than Mohamed Salah in Liverpool's attempts to win the title this season. So Team of the Month is done, but we are not done. We have still got Best Signing Performance of August, and I'm only going to talk about players that have just signed permanently for their new Premier League clubs, and then we're going to go into the Manager of the Month before wrapping up this video today. So, player number 3. I've given Mateo Kovacic a very honourable mention by putting him 3rd in the best performances of new signings in August. I think what he brings to that Chelsea midfield, we may not have had the best start to the season, but he's dribbling past players. He's one of the top 5 dribblers in the league right now in terms of successful dribbles past his opponent, and Mateo Kovacic's tackling has been absolutely huge for Chelsea, where we've been missing N'Golo Kante, which is a huge struggle for us and a huge worry. Kovacic has come in and he has just stepped up his game dramatically under Frank Lampard, and I've put him in 3rd, which means I've put in 2nd place Daniel James of Manchester United. Again, I think they have been at times awful under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer so far this season. They're in a really tricky moment of form right now in the longer scheme of things. Of course, they've had a summer where they've not played, but they've won like 3 of the last 16 matches, Man United. There's a serious worry at that football club amongst their fans right now. But Daniel James has come in and he's revolutionised things in midfield. He's got to stop celebrating last-minute equalisers at home to Crystal Palace. That's a little bit embarrassing. Let's leave that there, but I think that what he's done and the way he's played and the quality of the finish against Southampton as well, he's been absolutely fantastic for Manchester United. Now, in first place, I think there's a lot of players that could have made this list, and I could have really had a case for everybody being in different positions, but I've been really impressed with West Ham's Sebastian Haller. I've watched a lot of his highlights. I think what he does off the ball is absolutely brilliant. He's got 3 goals in 3 appearances so far. When you come into a team like West Ham, you never really know what you're going to get. On the first day of the season against Man City, they were battered, and the reason they were battered is because Manchester City are an incredible footballing side who could dismantle anyone in Europe or anyone in the world on any given day. So the way that Haller's come in and he's commanded that West Ham attack, I feel as though we've not even seen the best of him yet, and I've put him in as the best performance of new signings so far this season. You could have put like a Tammy Abraham and Mason Mount. It's virtually a new signing for Chelsea, but they weren't bought, so it didn't really count. So thank you very much. Got some support from the side there, but anyway. So the Manager of the Month, this was a pretty obvious one, I guess you could say, but we're doing a top 3 instead of just giving out number 1. That would have been a little bit too obvious. In 3rd place, I've gone with Brendan Rodgers. I think Leicester City quietly this season, near the top of the table, near the Champions League places throughout the whole season. I think Leicester have been absolutely brilliant so far, 8 points from their opening 4 matches, and I think Brendan Rodgers has got them playing some very nice football that is really going to disrupt a lot of big teams this season, and they know how to win games. They can keep Jamie Vardy fit the whole season. He looks fitter than ever, so I think they've got another goal scorer there. Got Tielemans who's come in, Hamza Chowdhury, who I mentioned earlier. I think he's been brilliant for Leicester. You've got James Maddison as well. There's an abundance of talent in that Leicester City team, and I think Brendan Rodgers has been very good for Leicester since he got there, and I'm putting him in third. So in second place, I've given it to Chris Wilder, the Sheffield United manager. I was so impressed with Sheffield United, the way that they came from behind at Stamford Bridge, the way that Chris Wilder adapted what's already a pretty crazy tactic that he plays for Sheffield United to come into the Premier League in the first place and implement something like that the Premier League hasn't seen before is a huge, bold statement from him. The way he believes in his football, the way he believes in his players, and the style of football that Sheffield United play. They've come in and, well, they could have beaten Chelsea for a start, and I think they've been very good. 5 points is a great start to the season for them. And manager of the month, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? He's won all 4 matches. It's Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. They've not only just won 4 matches in the Premier League, they also picked up the Super Cup trophy as well. It would have been crazy of me to not give Jurgen Klopp the manager of the month. Jurgen Klopp has bossed it. Liverpool have bossed it. They do look a class above everyone else in the Premier League so far this season, and Jurgen Klopp wins manager of the month. That brings an end to today's video, the August Premier League Awards. I put this white shirt on. I won't do it every single video. I'll be back to football shirts again most likely tomorrow, or if it keeps getting as cold as it is right now in Amsterdam, I'll be wearing something else as well. If you guys enjoyed this, be sure to leave a like on the video and let me know if you disagree, if you support one of the Premier League clubs and you think that this player's been better than that player. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below and let me know what you think of this series. I will catch you all tomorrow. See you later.